Ruy Lopez. So I think many of you by now would have already learnt about Ruy Lopez, but we'll go through a quick overview of it. It's a very large opening in the sense that there are so many different variations. It is also a very old opening. It was started in the 15th and 16th centuries in the Spanish players. They developed it first. And that time, Italian opening was more popular. Ruy Lopez was thing. But nowadays, if you see, Ruy Lopez is much more popular. And almost all the world champions have been masters of Ruy Lopez, right? From Morpheus, Steinitz, Lasker, Capablanca, then many of the competitors, I mean, the challengers also like Marshall, etc. And then, of course, Botvinnik, Spassky, Fischer, I think Bronstein, all of them, I think, were very good at Kasparov, Karpov, Anand, right? This one. So all of them have been very good with Ruy Lopez. So it is a great opening to learn. It can get a thing, but the ideas are logical, so it is slightly easier to understand than the Sicilian jungle. So but there are a lot of variations. So we will get going and we will cover a few of them, not all. So it starts with E4, E5, NF3, NC6, and Bishop to B5. I think you know this, Bishop to B5, and the idea is indirect threat on the E5 pawn, right? So white is threatening to pin down the black knight or capture it and then nothing. But the threat is not immediate. Okay, so it is not that immediately white can win a pawn. So there are many variations, and the first thing comes is whether black plays A6 or not. Okay, so this is where the first divergence starts occurring. So there is a group of openings. So Morpheus popularized the move A6. Before that, there were other moves like D6 was Steinitz's preference, and it was there even before, older than Steinitz also. So immediately, because you are threatening the knight, so immediately black plays D6 and bolsters the E5 pawn, right? But however, nowadays that is considered as overly cautious in the sense that you are taking away some of the chances that your other bishop has and blocking it inside unnecessarily too early. So because A6, etc. moves are there, better to ask the question. And anyway, it doesn't happen that white can win a pawn straight away, right? So the idea behind this is that if white plays A6, right? What do you call A6? Okay, and let us go into the first thing. Is that white, if white tries to execute his area, his threat, B takes C6, okay, and then D takes C6. Okay, in the opening, I think the first question is, should you take with the B pawn or the D pawn? What will you take it if white takes the knight like this?
Sir, you would take it with the D pawn, because if you take the E5 pawn, then you can play Queen D4 and win back the pawn.
Right. So there is a tactical angle there. But in otherwise also, remember this, I mean, irrespective of the E5 pawn, okay, that in very early in the opening, if such a thing is there, then it is okay to take from the center pawn away from the center, because it will open up the lines for both the bishop and the queen. Okay, and very early in the game, that is more important for you. So even if the E5 pawn was defended or any other way also, then also in such cases, it is okay to capture. But in all other cases, you capture towards the center. By the B pawn, you capture it so that you shore up and you get more mass of pawns in the center. Okay, but very early in the game, it is okay. Okay, and also there is a thing that the bishop is considered slightly higher value than knight, and when someone gives up the bishop, then that anyway he is giving up a slightly higher valued piece, and then early in the game you can open up the game like this thing, and so that is what is the principle. But having said that, you know that yes, capturing the pawn is not really a win of pawn, because black can always win it back by queen to d4. Okay, this everybody should remember, because you will be faced with exchange variation many times, and then there is no so white doesn't really win a pawn. Okay, in exchange variation immediately. Okay, so very simply.
Then another upside of taking with the d pawn is that the both bishops are now open and now they control both the diagonals.
Right. I mean, that is
if you took with the b pawn, the bishop's not really.
Yes, of course. That is the thing. That's why I said that because it is taking away, but it is opening for the diagonal for this light squared bishop as well as the queen file. It is opening up. That's why it is a much advantageous. That is right. Okay, so then b takes c6, d takes c6, and also white can play castle here instead of knight c3. And in case of castle here, now you have to defend. Now you have to defend the e5 pawn definitely. Okay, there is no way now that you can what do you call? You can ignore it now. Now there is a serious threat of it being captured. And normally there are actually three ways you can defend f6. In such cases, it is completely okay to defend by f6. Okay, in this particular thing, this is one of the rare what do you call one of the rare variations where an f6 is okay. And particularly because why it is okay, you might consider okay because we have seen Damiano's defense and where knight very easily sacrifices itself on e5 and queen goes to h5 and then comes. But because remember, white's bishop, light squared bishop, is gone now. Okay, in Damiano's defense, white still has got the Italian bishop, and then you just can't play something like f6 because the knight will sacrifice, queen will go to h5 check, and then come back on e5. And the bishop will be there on c4 cutting across to f7, so it will be deadly for black. But in this case, white has given up the bishop and it is okay in this position to go to f6. But there are also other options. You can do queen d6 also, and I would say even bishop d6 should work here, right? Bishop d6 should also work here. So but f6 is the most common. Okay, so if white plays castle, but normally white will play knight c3. White will continue his development for castling, and now also standard move is f6 again. Remember, in exchange variation, remember in Ruy Lopez, why, and not just remember it wrote, but why? Because white has given up the light squared bishop. So d6, and then white tries to push forth an exchange in the center. Now in this case again the question comes is, should black exchange in the what do you call exchange the pawns, or should try to defend the pawn, right? So again defending the pawn means your bishop will have to come to d6.
Do anything.
Yeah,
It'd be better to defend the pawn because then if you take it, the opponent has full control of the center. But rather, if you defend it and they take, you can just take back, and you both have equal.
You will have equal control. Like let's say black plays bishop to d6, and if you take d takes e and f takes e.
Control. Yes, but if you take, the opponent will have full center control, so it's better to defend, right?
Yeah. Only thing is that you will have actually black will have an isolated e pawn, but it is not such a big disadvantage because he has got an open f file for his rook if he manages to quickly castle and thing. So I think it should be okay. It should be okay. But black is completely okay to exchange the pawn also here. He takes d4. And if queen takes d4, so both are okay. I'm sure both are okay. I mean, it is not that this is the only thing. We are just showing you this one. So queen takes d4, knight takes d4. We are just showing you a sample variation. It is not the only way. Okay, because a lot of these things are playable in Ruy Lopez. Almost everything which is reasonably looks okay is actually playable in Ruy Lopez. So knight takes d4, bishop takes d7. So black is getting ready for queenside castle. White is also getting ready for queenside castle. And yeah, I think fairly equal position. This arises out of the exchange variation of the Ruy Lopez. White has got a slightly better pawn structure, because black has got 4 pawns, but they are on 3 files only on the queen side. So effectively, if you go to the end game, then white has got an advantage, because white has got a 4 versus 3 majority on the king side, right? But white has given up the bishop, and position blocked. It is not a blocked position of pawns, so which means black's 2 bishops are pretty good, pretty well placed. So black has got compensation for the double pawn that he has got on c5. So it's a very equal game, and many times it gets into a draw. But I mean, that is at a super grandmaster level. At our level, every game is decisive. And yeah, you can play it from both sides. You can play it, exchange variations. I mean, it is white dictates it. So actually, black really cannot opt for exchange variation. I mean, white really decides. One of the players who used to play for a win in the end game with exchange variation was Fischer. So if you want to see some example games, you can look at some Fischer's games where he has used this strategy to get out of the what do you call?
Did he win most of them?
He won many of them, and because he was such a much better player, right? I mean, and he used to. That's why I mean, he used to take people out of their opening preparation. So this was a very good way of taking out, and he was a very good end game player also. So he won many games with this. So I think you should look up his this one. If you look up his, if you have a database and look up his things, I think you will easily find many of the games or in his this one also. Okay, so this was the exchange variation. Now we can go to the next one. So next one, there are a lot of options we will see. And for Stein is okay. So e4, e5, nf3, nc6, bb5. Okay. So the old defense was d6. Okay, and old defense was d6, and Morpheus introduced or made popularized the move a6, and after that again it was possible to play d6. I mean, d6 is called as Stein's defense deferred, just one move later. Okay, so this is still this. What is the difference between playing it earlier, playing d6, and playing after a6? You play d6. There is one, so this is what becomes thing. So what do you think is the key difference? Why would black?
The bishop is now on a4.
Yeah, bishop is now on a4, but still pinning the knight on.
The bishop is. Yeah, and you've committed your pawn to a6.
Yeah, but what is the thing? So what do you achieve by that?
It's easier to get on the a2 to g8 diagonal.
No, what is the key principle is black now has got a sure way. If he wants to break the pin, he can always at his own will, he can play b5, and there will not be any pin on the knight c6. Okay.
Or bishop d7.
Yeah, bishop d7, but still you allow the white bishop to capture the knight in that case. But b5 is a move where you can completely break the pin and prevent any exchange, and it is at your disposal if you want it, right? Choice is yours, which will not be the case unless a6 is played. So that is why a6 is first played, because there are many variations in which black decides whether to play first b5 or not. And but however, it has to be played with carefully, with care. Okay, so for example, after bishop a4, many times you might see this in early thing. So those who are playing Ruy Lopez from the black side at early beginners, right? Immediately going after the bishop is not good. Is not good, because you just think that you have played, you have put the bishop back. Okay, and now what does black play? If black plays knight f6, then knight g5 is deadly. Okay, because you have not even opened the d file yet, so the bishop cannot even counter anything in between, and you are going to be. And if you don't play bishop, now what will you do? You can play bishop to e7. Yeah, bishop to e7 you can play, but again there can be white bishop can then come to d5 also. and again put the knight under. Can you imagine if you play bishop to e7, this bishop comes to d5, again pins the knight against the rook, and if he takes it now, this structure will be even worse for black after a pawn takes on c6. Right. In fact, there will be a thing. So it is. It's not so great for black to play b5 prematurely. Okay. So that is why after bishop a4, again there are many moves, but two main moves. Knight f6 is the most common one, and that is what is the modern thing. But d6 is the old Steinitz defense deferred, which is also a pretty strong move. We'll see it. But modern move is knight f6. Okay. Okay, so we'll see d6 now. We'll see d6. Okay, who has joined? Yep, Ramnath. I think Pranav S. And who else has joined just now? I think. But we are discussing Ruy Lopez opening. Okay. Okay, so d6. Let us say. So White's idea is. In Ruy Lopez opening, White's idea is to play c3 followed by d4, just like Italian what we had seen, but with a slightly different setup, slightly slower this one, but more sustained advantage. So White plays c3 here. It is possible for White to play d4 upfront, sort of like opening up, and there are things you should know. Now, you should know if you are black, you should know what to do with this, because now White is really threatening something. It is not really, I mean, black can easily take care of it, but you should know what to do. So now b5 is mandatory. Now b5 is mandatory, because if you do not play b5, then the pawn can push up front and cause this one. Or you can even threaten to take the pawn, exchange the knight, bishop takes knight, and then try to win the pawn. Right? I mean, take the queens off the board, and then you win the pawn. So there is a serious threat of winning the pawn. So now it is okay to play b5. You should play, in fact, b5. And now bishop to b3. And now knight can come and should come and take d4. Knight takes d4. He takes d4. And now there is a big trap, well-known trap here. Queen takes d4 is a trap. White has fallen into the trap if White plays.
Oh, sir, is this the Noah's Ark trap?
Yeah, you remember.
Then you play c5 and then
c5.
Then you play not c3, but you play c5.
And then c4.
Not immediately. First, White queen attacks the rook. So black defends it. At the same time, mate threat on f7. So bishop comes to e6. Now queen goes to c6, check. And again, bishop has to go back to d7. And now queen comes back to d5 again, threatening the checkmate. But now you simply play c4. And this is the Noah's Ark trap. Right? So, yep. So this is the, where I was saying it is possible to play it is possible to play d4, I was saying. And queen d4 you should not play here. After all of these exchanges, you should immediately play. There are two ways to play. Immediately play bishop to d5. So that your bishop is not going to get trapped here. And then after rook moves to thing, then you can capture the pawn and queen to d4. Right? This is what you can do. Or you can sacrifice a pawn also, gambit style. So c3, instead of capturing it back, you are offering one more pawn, and now you are developing the knight. So there are many games like this where White has sacrificed a pawn for attack. So this is also possible. Okay. And so both things are these are possible completely. There is also where we had gone back ba4, d6, and there are also sometimes White also prefers to exchange now also. Okay, so one move late. You might be asking why? Why did he not on a6 itself? Why did he not take it? But yeah, I mean, it's a good question. But there are just that fact that some people prefer to do it. And d4, black should continue f6 here. But this is also played. What is the idea here is that white is threatening to win a pawn again, because e takes thing, and if black takes the pawn, then white queen will definitely come here now, no problem, and queen will get centralized, and there is no question of any driven away by the knight c6, etc. So it is okay for it's decent what do you call advantage, slight advantage for white. So this can also be played like this. However, the most common thing is c3, because that is the what do you call long-term plan of white is to play c3 followed by d4. So just going back, I think e4, e5, nf3, nc6, ba4, sorry, bb5, a6, ba4, d6, down c3. c3, then black generally will try to play bishop to d7. And even if white plays d4, it is still okay because you have played d6, so you have shored up, and now the knight is not no longer pinned, so it is okay. So black can continue to defend with, sorry, develop with knight f6. So that is completely okay. Now here, most of the time you will see that the knight comes to f6, and that is what is a standard plan. But some people have preferred to develop the knight to e7 with the idea that it should go to g6. Okay, so that is also possible, but you have to calculate sometimes properly when you do this. So when this happens, bishop b3, and then h6 you play first, because you don't want knight to be jumping to g5, creating some weird threats on f7. So white castles, and now black plays knight to g6, and then bishop to e3, bishop to e7, and bd2, castle. All of this is completely okay, completely okay. So this is a style of development. Only thing is that when you develop what do you call, when you develop the knight to e7, you have to calculate properly in the center how the exchanges are happening and whether you are safe there. And after that also, see this, when bishop to b3 itself, here h6 move is important. Because if you simply play knight to g6 now, then this knight will go to g5, and then you may lose a pawn. Black may lose a pawn there. So that is why the order is very important. Okay, but coming back, I think the most common move is d4 and knight f6, because this is what is the most common move. White also castles, and black also gets ready for castle by playing bishop to e7. This is the most common move. We will see there are possibilities where knight comes to e4, and this is like the open Spanish. We'll consider it next week. We are going to most probably we are going to discuss this variation. So this is called an open Spanish, but we will not look at it right now. But bishop e7 is the most thematic move, and then so remember now, because c3 you have played, and black is not getting into a hurry to exchange the pawn on d4, unlike the Italian, right? So here white has to develop the other knight to d2. Okay. And this is the standard. You can imagine that in Ruy Lopez, this maneuver is very, very standard maneuver. Rook will come to e1. This knight will go from d2, it will go to f1, and then either it will go to e3 or it will go to g3. Okay. From e3, the idea, or g3, from both of them, the idea is to land on f5. And from e3, you can also control, sometimes go on to d5. But this is the trajectory of the knight in Ruy Lopez, from b1 to d2 to f1, then to mostly to g3, but also to e3 sometimes, right? Depending on the situation. So let us see nbd2, castle. rook to e1. And now that the king has castled, so anyway, the now the knight is not this one. So bishop goes to e8, makes way for the queen to come up to d7, probably after a b5, not immediately. And then the other rook will also come into the picture. So or like this also. This knight might also go to d7. And see now knight g3 and now f6. So f6 is played. That means now the now the bishop from e8 is going to come to f7 actually. So he's going to secure that diagonal completely for black. So yeah, I mean, like this, it happens. Interesting struggle. It is all like very balanced struggle going on. Just retrace the moves a little bit. There are possibilities. Yeah, bishop e8 was one thing, but it can also here at some point black also can exchange the pawns. Like how much tension and how long to keep it. Yeah, it is a thing. But after all the development is done, black is many times ready to exchange the pawns and resolve it. And if he takes d4, c takes d4. Now knight, yeah, this knight movement is also very, very thematic in Ruy Lopez. Knight will come to b4. Bishop d7, queen d7, knight to f1. Now black, see the whole idea of knight coming to b4 or sometimes rarely to a5 is that to push the pawn from c7 to c5. Because white has got a broad, solid center, and black has to counter attack. Right? So if the pawns remain like that without unchallenged, then it will be bad for black. So, but black has got a plan of challenging it. And then e3. Now you can play d5, but the knight can come to e5. So white has got a slight advantage, but his pawns, the central advantage is now countered by black's pawn on c5 also, which controls d4. So it is not like that. And the fact that the pawns, they're not next to each other. One of them is advanced. That means the hole is there, right? On e5 and d4, white does not have control. So black has it. So it's a balanced thing. So this way also it is played.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Can you go to the 11th?
Sorry. Madhura?
Yes. Can you go to the 11th move of the previous variation?
Yep.
F6.
Bishop takes here?
No, the other variation.
Oh, okay. Knight to g3 here, huh?
Yeah, now why does black play f6? Because then queen can go to b3 and check, right?
No, queen can go to b3 and check. Oh, double attack you are saying on thing, right? Double attack and f6. Let us see why. Yeah, f6. Queen b3 is you are checking and attacking b7.
And then after we take.
After you take it, the knight is also.
Black will defend the check. And then after queen takes b7, it also attacks the knight and the pawn as well.
And what if the knight goes to a5 after that?
After what? After queen to
b7. Queen to b7, then knight goes to a5. Then queen will come to b4. Queen will have to come to b4, right? So I mean, I don't know. I will have to calculate.
Queen will come to b4 and knight will go back, I guess, and then d5.
Wait, no. If queen.
No. If the knight cannot go back to
black
d5.
Can play d5, no?
Black can play.
By opening the bishops.
No. The knight on a4 will be, sorry, a5 will be hanging. So you can't, you have to defend. So you have to move the c pawn first.
No, sir. After queen b3, king moves or something. And then I take on b7, you play knight a5, queen d4. Where will you put the knight?
No. That's why, I mean, I don't put the knight. I move the c pawn so that I defend the knight. And then I can play c5. I can play c5, attack the queen with the pawn, at the same time defend the knight. And
But the queen can retreat safely, right?
queen can, where can it go?
Yes, but also
Take the pawn up then.
No, queen can, where can it
but
go?
also it's a question. It's a question of whether it's worth it to invest
Yeah.
that much time just for a pawn.
Exactly. So, and sometimes the queen can get cornered.
Because black will play bishop f7 or something. When you play
Right.
queen b3, black will play like bishop.
Right. No, that's why. I mean, you have to properly think. So f6. I mean, it is not the only move. That's why I want to ensure. I want to just make sure this is not the thing. Many times, what do you call? You will play something different also. But
Okay, yeah, the description says that black's position is somewhat cramped.
right. Black's position is somewhat cramped. Yeah. But it is not easy, right? As you said, it is not easy to grab a pawn or something like that. The Ruy Lopez actually, everything is finely balanced. Actually, you will find, you just have to think of things and options, and you will find that there will be resources on both sides. One of the great players who was there from the black side, right, was both Kasparov as well as Karpov. They have got some great victories from the black side of Ruy Lopez. So it is not just from the white side. Equally beautiful resources are there from the black side. So yep, and that is why it is a very rich opening. So okay, very quickly, I think since we are here, rather than going into a new variation, we had talked about, just to going back, I think BA4 and then D6, then C3, and then we had looked at BD7, D4 and NF6, then castle, and said that there is also a possibility of knight taking E4, and how this variation pans out, just see it. Rook has to come to E1 immediately. And then now in this case, knight goes back to F6. In some other variations, it goes back to D6 when black has not played D6. But in this variation, there is a pawn, so it will go to F6. And then bishop takes C6, bishop takes C6, D takes E5, D takes E5, queen takes D8 check, rook takes D8, knight takes E5, right? Now it looks as if white has got a tremendous advantage, but it is not like that, right? You are threatening a discovered check, and you are you are also threatening to take the bishop and whatever, isolate the pawn. So bishop comes to E4. And now you might be thinking, why not E3, right? Sorry, F3. But
So even the bishop can come out with a tempo, right? Bishop to G5.
Bishop to G5 can come with a tempo. Yeah, he can come with a tempo, but bishop will go to E7, and then you will not have any problem actually after that. So
E7.
yeah, if you go to bishop,
Now white can play bishop to G5.
yeah, you play bishop to G5, but black will play bishop to E7.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, and why? Yeah, you have a mate threat down yet, so you can't simply think of capturing the rook, bishop on E4 after exchange, right? BG5, BE7, BF6, BF6, and rook E4 is not possible because rook B1 is checkmate. So
yeah.
So because of that, so white develops F3. If you play, then bishop C5 will come with a check, and then black will castle and immediately is out of the problems. Not immediately, bishop he will put it back and then castle. So okay, so knight to D2 and then bishop to E7, and knight takes E4, knight takes E4, bishop H6. Huh? Okay, why this the idea? Because white wants to capture on E4, but does not want the mate threat, so he is clearing the last rank. And G takes H6. Now rook can take E4. Right now, he can take on E4. And now, but black does castle now because he has taken a piece. No, exchange of pieces has happened. So no problem. Now knight c6. Black takes it. Black gets now two isolated pawns, isolated double pawns. And rook takes e7. So that way, if you see, is this position completely lost for black because of strategic thing? Okay, I think I am less than a minute. Can we join back for 5 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll just join back for 5 minutes. Okay.
Join back